Welcome to the 5-Minute Prime Podcast. Quick, actionable tips to master personal finance and real estate investing. In just 5 minutes a day, we'll help you build wealth and achieve financial freedom. Asbestos causes cancer. It costs $20,000 to $60,000 to rip out, and half of millennials said they buy a house full of it just to stop renting. Let that land for a second. Hey, Prime investors, Martin Maxwell here. Welcome back to the 5-Minute Prime Podcast. Today, we're not talking about asbestos. We're talking about what that stat actually tells you as a landlord. Because if half a generation would accept a carcinogen in their walls to escape renting, and they still can't get out, you need to understand the market you're operating in. This is a renter's market. And I don't mean that the way most people use the phrase. I'll explain. Quick note, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a mortgage broker. This is education, not personal investment advice. Don't make a move without a qualified professional on your team. We clear? Good. The demand you can't fake. So let's go through the numbers. I'll try not to bury you, but I need you to hear these. 97% of millennial home buyers, 97, face at least one barrier to buying. High prices, interest rates, down payments, taxes, pick your poison. Most of them hit 2 or 3 at once. The income you need to afford a median priced home right now, $112,000. Median US income, $87,000. That's a $25,000 gap, and it's not shrinking. Last year, first-time buyers made up 21% of all purchases. Historic low. The median age of a first-time buyer hit 40. 40. That used to be 29. And here's the one that stopped me cold. A year ago, 49% of Americans said buying a home felt unrealistic. Today, 62%. That's a 13-point jump in 12 months. In 1 year, nearly 2 out of 3 Americans gave up on the idea. So where do they go? They rent, obviously. 45.6 million renter households. Record number. Growing 3 times faster than homeowner households. The homeownership rate fell for the first time since 2016. But it's not just the people who can't buy. Here's the twist. 64% of people who choose to rent by choice previously owned a home. They had the deed in their hand, sold it, went back to renting on purpose. Why? Because mortgage payments are 93% higher than rent for comparable housing. 93%. They did the math and renting won. 47% of all renters now see it as a 5-year plus commitment. Half of them don't even view home ownership as a status symbol anymore. My point of view is this. We're not looking at a bad cycle. This is a market made of renters. Not people who failed to buy, people who mathematically cannot buy or who did the math and chose not to. I call it the renter's market. If you own rental property, this is your demand thesis, not hope, arithmetic. The landlord's runway. Okay, so the demand is real, but how long does it last? Because if this is a blip, like some 18-month cycle that corrects, then fine, don't worry about it. It's not a blip. Let me show you the floor. America is short 4.03 million homes, 4 million, and the gap is getting worse, widening by about 50,000 units a year. At current construction rates, we're 7+ years from closing that deficit, 7 years. That's if everything goes perfectly, which, come on. And there are 1.82 million missing households on top of that. Young people who want to live on their own, but the numbers don't work. When those households eventually form, and they won't form as buyers, they'll form as renters. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to. And this is core research phase thinking in the Prime framework. The average renter is 31 years old. The average first-time buyer, somewhere between 38 and 40. That's a 7 to 9 year window. I call it the 7-year gap. That gap is your business model. Every person who starts renting at 31 is, on average, your tenant for the better part of a decade before they even attempt to buy. And most of them won't make it through the 97% wall when they try. The institutional money already figured this out. And the numbers are, honestly, they're kind of wild. Single-family rental occupancy is running at 96%. Average resident tenure, over 40 months. That's 3.5 years in one property. Build-to-rent vacancy, 3 to 5%. Traditional apartments, 7 to 8. BTR rent premiums running 15 to 25% above apartment rates. And institutional SFR exposure jumped 20% in a single year. Let that sink in. The biggest money in real estate looked at these same survey numbers and went all in on renters. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rent growth is slowing. 0.5 to maybe 1.1% nationally. Fair. But rent growth is not the story here. Occupancy is the story. Tenure is the story. Your units stay full. Your tenants stay years, not months. And the pipeline of new renters, it gets bigger every year because the math to buy keeps getting worse. I call it the landlord's runway. It's not a cycle. It's a floor. And it runs into the 2030s. How to get on the right side. All right, so the demand is structural. The runway is long. Now what? If you already own rentals, just understand what you're sitting on. The data says your tenants aren't going anywhere, not because they don't want to leave, because they can't afford to. So protect those units. Take care of them. That tenant base is an asset. Treat it like one. If you don't own yet, the entry point is still open. We covered FHA loans back in episode 32, 3.5% down on a 2 to 4 unit property. You live in one unit. Your tenants cover the mortgage from the other units. A $400,000 fourplex, that's $14,000 down versus $100,000 on a conventional investment loan. Cleveland is the #1 house hacking city right now. Median duplex at $135,000. Effective housing cost of $297 a month. After 12 months, you move out. Keep the FHA terms. Now you're a landlord with a fully rented building in a renter's market, and you got in for less than a used car. One more angle. Remember those surveys? 50% of flipped home buyers are entry-level purchasers, the desperate ones, the asbestos buyers. That means if you buy a value-add property, fix it up, and decide to sell, your exit buyer is already in line. The same desperation that fills your rental is the desperation that buys your flip. You win either way. Last week in episode 114, we talked about assumable mortgages, the 3% hack. If you combine that rate advantage with the demand runway we just walked through, that's a locked-in low rate on a property with a locked-in tenant base. Hard to beat that math. Your challenge today, do this tonight. Go to Zillow Rentals, find the median rent for a 2-bedroom in your city. Then, open bank rate, look up the median mortgage payment for the same area. Divide the mortgage by the rent. Got a number above 1.5. That means it costs 50% more to own than to rent where you live. That's a renter's market. Your tenants can't leave. One number, one screenshot, send it to me. Next episode, there's a tax loophole that lets you pocket up to $500,000 tax-free every 2 years. Your neighbor might already be using it. That's next episode. I'm Martin Maxwell. Keep learning, stay strategic, and keep building one step at a time.